Hi, and welcome to this PowerShell quick tip video. This quick tip video is actually going to be on the Get-Date commandlet. So its primary focus is really getting the current date time on your local system, but there are actually a lot of different parameters that we can use with the Get-Date to get us very specific information or to get us even the universal time. And we can also create timestamps and get the specific day of year with some of the different methods that we can do on date time variables. So let's actually go ahead and let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on the get date commandlet to see how we can make it maybe a little bit more useful for our scripts. So by default, the get-date commandlet, we just call it by using the get-date here, gives us the current date time of our local system, which for me right now is November 13th, 6:05:35 p.m. So we get the date, we get the time in a standard 12-hour AM PM format. Now what we can actually do is just get the actual date or just get the time. Sometimes in our script, maybe we don't care about the actual time, we only care about the date. We only need the date, or maybe sometimes in our scripts, we don't care about what date it is because it's something that we need to do every day, but we care about the time that it is. So to do that is a get date, and then there's a parameter called display hint. And in display hint, you'll actually be prompted for three different options. Date, which is just going to get you the date. Date time, which is going to get you both the date and the time, which is the default, and then just time. So if we actually just do date here and we actually run this, we get just November 13th, 2022. If we just do time, we will actually only get 6:06:45 p.m., which is the current time. So that is something that you can actually use if you just need the date or time. You don't need the actual full date time format, which is maybe something you actually need in your scripts. The other very useful option was get date, and this is where it really comes into scripting, especially if you're playing around with APIs or different programs that maybe use UTC time or universal time. Now, a lot of systems will actually use this because people will be using them from all different time zones, and it is truly the only way to actually have a standardized date. So oftentimes, like Microsoft with the Graph API will actually use the universal time. Now, a way that you would actually be able to get the current date time as universal time is by doing get-date, and then we have a parameter called as UTC. Now, if we run this here, we actually see that we get November 13th, 2022, 11:07:49 p.m. And this is actually the universal time right now. Since I'm in Eastern time, it is -5, which is why it is 6:07 right now here, or 6:08 now. And if we do the as UTC, we get 11:08 for right now. Now, you can actually do a lot of things with the as UTC parameter set. You could actually do as well your custom formatting, which we will see that in just a little bit here. So if I just do something really quick here, which I will explain how to do the custom formatting in just a little bit, you will be able to get a custom formatting in UTC as well. You can also do the display hint and just get the time in UTC if that's all you really needed as well. Now, another option that you can actually do to get a time or a date time in UTC time is if you have a script here and you get the date in a variable, what you can actually do is get that variable in a UTC time. So if we just do the $date as get date and we display that date, we of course just get today's date, November 13th, 6:09 now. If we do the date dot to universal time, open and close parentheses, that will actually convert that time in that variable to the universal time. And you can actually do this with all the get-date time. So if you actually just do get-date in parentheses, and then to universal time, open and close parentheses, you will get the current time in universal time. And you can actually do this with all the different options here, except the ones that return strings. So even if you did the display hint here and time, if you did this, you will actually notice that we get the full date time back. That will not work. Also, if you did a custom formatting as well, that will not work either, because when you're doing a custom formatting, you're actually returning a string and not a date time. So that is something to consider. But as long as you're using just the get-date commandlet, you could do the dot universal time. If you're doing like any other type of parameters, I would stick to using the parameter as UTC time. That will be your best bet. But just know that the dot method of to universal time is there if you do want to manipulate date time variables. Now our next thing that we kind of hinted towards already is getting dates in custom formatting. So this is very, very useful, especially if you're writing logs or writing to different applications, and you need dates in specific formats. So there's actually two types of custom formatting. There is a U format and a format option. We're going to cover the format option first, and then we're going to cover the U format. I will be posting links to more information on these in the description below, just because there are so many different options that you can do for formatting. I will not be able to cover all of them. I will cover the ones that I think are probably your most likely ones to be used more commonly, and the ones that I use most commonly anyways. But there are a lot of different options that you can do. So let's start off with format here. Now, format takes in a string, and you can put in a bunch of different characters that will represent different items in the time. So if you want to represent the year, it is actually 4 lowercase y's. And then if you want to do the month, you're going to want to do 2 uppercase m's. You could also just do 1 uppercase m, but 2 uppercase M's will go 0, 1 through 12. If you only do 1 uppercase M, it will do 1 through 12. A lot of applications that I have worked with in the past usually like that 0. But if your application does not, no worries. You could just put 1M and it will not add the 0 in front. Same thing for the D's. Lowercase d's will be the day, and that is the same thing. If you only put 1 lowercase d, that will do the number of days 1 through 31. If you do 2 lowercase d's, that will do the date in 01 through 31. So that is, again, very useful if your application requires that 0 in front of the 1. And then we can do a capital double H for a 24-hour formatted time. Lowercase m's for the amount of minutes with the 0 in front of the single digit numbers. A single m if you just want 1 through 59. Double M if you want 0, 1 through 59. And we even have, you can specify if you want the date of the week, the day of the week. So like Sunday through Monday, or Monday through Sunday. You can actually do 4 lowercase d's. So if we actually output this string here, we will actually get 2022-11-13-1813 Sunday, because today is a Sunday, and it is 6/13, and it is November 13th, 2022. So that is something to definitely that you can use, and you can add a whole bunch of different, like you don't need to put colon here in between the time. You could put a dash. You can not put dashes. You can do it any way you really want, and it will format it that way. Another thing that you can actually do as well is if you specify a K, I believe, yes, K. K will give you the time difference from UTC time. So here we have -5. So those are all things that are very, very useful with the dash format. The other formatting method here that we could use if you wanted to keep the date in a date format. So right now, if I actually assign this to a variable, as we've seen it with the dot method, this date f will actually be, so if I do a get type on this one here, and open and close parentheses, we will see that this is a string, and if I do it on this date up here, it is a date time. So that is something to keep in mind. There are ways that you could just use the $date from Get-Date. You can do date dot methods, and you can get the hour, the year, the month that way, and you can write out your own strings as well. But when you have this format option, it is definitely a lot easier. As an example, if we did a write output here, we would have to wrap all of them in variable wrappers and then do date dot year and then dash and then another variable wrapper, date dot month and then dash and then another variable wrapper, date dot day. So as you can see, like this could get quite long compared to just writing out a simple string here. But it does work, and it would keep your variable in a date time format. Now the other formatting method is the get-date-u format. Now this one is also this one's a little bit more confusing for me personally. I usually use the just dash format option, but I'm sure if you get used to it, it is quite easy to use. Now here we would actually be able to use %Y for year, capital lowercase m for month, and then dash lowercase %d for day. And that would get us the year, month, and day. Now, of course, there are, again, a lot of other options that you can use. And as I said, I'll be posting the links for the format and U format, different character codes that you can put. I'll be putting that in the description down below. Now, on top of getting the current day and time, you can actually create your own dates as well. So if you needed to maybe compare today's date against a date in the future, or you wanted to do something with some type of custom date, I'm not too sure where you would use this other than in a comparison of dates. But you can actually do like get date year, where you can specify the year, you can specify the month, you can specify the day as well. So here we're going to create a date December 2nd, 2022. And you can even specify the hour. So let's do the 13th hour, the 5th minute, and the 30th second. If we actually run this here, we will get December 2nd, 2022, 1:05:30 p.m. So this would be useful again, like if you're running a script that's constantly running and there's like specific days that will trigger an email notification or something, you can easily create a date in those scripts to check against to see if the current date is equal that date, then do X action. And you can also even get the day of the year as well. Let's say maybe your application, every time it reaches the 150th day of the year, this needs to happen. And it's not necessarily always March 5th or something. I don't know what would be the 150th day of the year. But what you can actually do to get the day of the year is if you did a get-date, wrap it in parentheses and do a day of year, you can actually get the current day of the year. So right now, being November 13th, it is actually the 317th day. And you can do this on any get date option. So even if we did it on our December 2nd date, we do day of year, we can actually run this here and it will actually tell us December 2nd is the 336th day of the year. So if we had something that needs to run on that day, that will actually tell us when to actually execute it. Or if we want to know how many days are in the year, we could just always put like December 31st of that year and see if it's a year that has 365 days or a year that has 366 days. That will actually tell us how that works. Now, the last thing that we're actually going to be going over in this video is actually how to do a date, like a timestamp option. Now, this is good for writing logs, or if your application exports files, maybe you want to also timestamp those files so you know when that export was created. Now, the way that I would personally do that, there are a lot of different ways to do it. So there is a get-date dash format again. What I would typically do is my 4 lowercase y's, 2 uppercase m's after a dash, and then another dash, lowercase d's. So double M, double D, and then a T. Now the T will actually stand for nothing. It'll just be added into the string. I usually just use it to represent time, and then I will do 2 capital H's for the hours in 24-hour format, 2 are lowercase m's after a dash, and then dash SS for seconds. So if I actually run this here, we get 2022 dash 11 dash 13, and then T for time, 18/21/01. So I know it was at 6:21 on November 13th, 2022. Now the dashes are just what I pick, but you can actually do dots here as well, or you can do underscores as well. Anything as long as it is a valid formatting for file names, like colons aren't valid characters for file names, so that's not something that I would typically pick. I like the dashes. It's pretty easy to read, very easy to kind of remember that is how it is set. So that is all pretty much the different parameters that we really have with our get date. There is one final thing that I do want to show, which is the get date. And then there is a parameter called Unix times second. Now, I don't know if a lot of you guys will actually use this. I haven't used it all that often. I think there are a few fields in Active Directory that are actually stored in this time format. So this is actually the number of seconds that have passed since, I believe, 1971, January 1st. So actually, if we just do 1 here, so get date unit time seconds 1, it will actually give us, 1969. So December 31st, 1969, 7:01 p.m. If we did 2, you're going to notice that it is just 7:02 p.m. So it is the number of seconds since December 31st, 1969, which actually in UTC time would actually be 1970, January 1st. So that is something to kind of take into consideration with your regional time settings. But the Unix time is just a bunch of numbers that represents the seconds since that start of time there, since the start of computer time. And that is pretty much it for the different parameters with get-date. So if you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know down below in the comment section. I will try my best to answer all of them directly. If it's something that is a little bit more generic or general that a lot of people can benefit from, I will make a video on it. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. I will see you guys on that next video.